And we welcome now Jaco Kleynhans, who is the head of international liaison. Mr. Kleynhans, what's the purpose of this trip?
Yes, good day. Yes, I'm here in Washington, D.C. to discuss Solidarity's proposals on a possible trade agreement with the U.S. government, and specifically to talk about the current 30% import duties. That is really creating havoc in South Africa. We've seen already thousands of job losses due to that. So yeah, I'm having discussions with the White House, the State Department, and members of the U.S. Congress to try and look at alternatives to the 30% import duties.
Ideally, what sort of trade deal do you think you'd be able to pull off for South Africa?
Yes, I think we look at what happened with other countries. I take great example from Japan. They were able to get quite a much lower import duty about 2 or 3 weeks ago by executive order. So there's different ways of doing this. You know, the one way is certainly to get a more broader trade agreement. That is what the South African government is trying to negotiate with the U.S. government. But we are looking at a possible executive order from the White House that will lower the import duties.
Why do you think it is that the White House seems to be relatively happy to chat to you, but not to our government?
Yes, I think what we are looking at is we have the current 30% import duties. We hope for lower import duties of, say, 15%. We have very good relations with many people here in Washington for the last few years, you know, so we have an open door to discuss this with all policymakers, and I'm really hopeful that we will this week be able to encourage people here in Washington to, within the next few weeks, lower those trade tariffs, tariffs, but also they encourage them to look at a more broader agreement between South Africa and the US.
What would South Africa have to do to get 15% in your opinion?
Yeah, that's a very important question. I'm so happy that you're asking that, because I think the mistake that the South African government is making is to focus only on the economic issues, you know. And there's certainly an economic challenge in the relationship between the US and America at the moment, but it's not only an economic problem. There's certainly a political challenge. There's a political breakdown between the two countries. And the US are demanding certain political issues that we need to address, you know, issues on South Africa's foreign policy, but also certain issues like property rights and the Expropriation Act. So we believe that it is necessary to get a longer-term agreement for South Africa to, at the end, make certain political agreements with the US on issues like property rights, on certain laws in South Africa that the Americans are unhappy about, but I think especially our foreign policy.
Do you think it's fair that a foreign country tries to tell us how we should run our affairs? I mean, if we accede to America, China may have demands, India may have demands, Russia may have demands. Is this fair?
Well, everyone always have demands, you know. Different countries have different demands from other countries. They want certain things in terms of relations. If they open their markets to you, then they may demand certain things, and that may be political as well as economic in nature. So I think that's quite normal. That's been part of negotiations between countries over many years and decades, and even longer than that, you know. So I think that's quite normal. I don't think the American government is trying to tell South Africa exactly what we need to do, how the South African government need to govern South Africa. But America has certain requirements, you know. If you want to trade with America, you need to have certain requirements in terms of things like property ownership, human rights, in terms of equality in a country, and certain laws in South Africa certainly are not in line with what America requires, you know. So I don't think the American government is really prescribing to South Africa what they need to do.
Mr. Kleynhans, thank you very much for your time as well as your insights. That was Solidarity's Jaco Kleynhans, and he's the head of international liaison.